San Quentin State Prison would first open its doors in 1854 and is the state of California's oldest serving prison. Today, it is home to some 3,400 inmates and was the site of a brutal murder, which back on April 24th, 2024, two inmates who were sharing a cell, Joshua Jones and James Healy, would be observed doing a routine cell check. However, upon further observation, staff would notice that inmate James Healy would be unresponsive. Having suffered serious head injuries, inmate Healy, who was viewed at exactly 9:40 p.m., would immediately receive medical treatment. However, he would be pronounced deceased at 10:27 p.m.
In prison more than 3 months ago says they still don't know the cause of his death. 43-year-old James Healy died on April 25th. His family fears that he was possibly beaten to death by his cellmate. The Coleman family has filed a petition in Marin County Superior Court to force the California Department of Corrections to release records about Healy's death. His sister tells us the family's requests for information have been ignored.
He was supposed to get out in like 18 months. He had, a short time, and he was celled with somebody who had 2 life sentences. And so we didn't understand, why was he even housed with this guy?
Diana Coleman says she fears Healy's cellmate may be linked to her brother's death. We have reached out to the Marin County District Attorney to learn if anyone had been charged with Healy's death. Prosecutors said they are still investigating.
If I think the guys are interested, I'll give a show.
California. They've issued a warrant for the arrest of 25-year-old Andrew Manuel, alias Richard Diaz, for the theft of a house trailer. Police say Manuel and John Collins, the man arrested last week for the murder of the latest co-ed victim, traveled to California in the trailer in June. When we think of prisons, if we bother to think of them at all, that is, there is a tendency to see them as institutions completely divorced from human society, little worlds of their own. But prisons and their inmates are subject to some of the same stresses and strains as the outside world, as Terry Drinkwater reports from San Quentin State Prison in California.
The guards at San Quentin have their own way of describing the mood of the inmates. They call it the climate on the inside. And this summer, the climate is hot. 1 white and 2 black prisoners have been killed. 14 inmates have been stabbed. And even moderate convict leaders concede the situation has sometimes become a race war.
It used to be a certain group against another group, the Nazis against the Muslims. But now it's a black face against a white face, and everyone is a target.
Now, if you're a black man, it don't make any difference what clique you belong to. As long as you're black, you're going to get hit. If you're a white man, it don't make any difference what your age or what clique, you're going to get hit.
Even though San Quentin is a maximum security prison, the inmates are very much influenced by society on the outside and the racial tension that is there. 1/3 of the inmates are black. Many call themselves Panthers or Mau Mau. But white convicts have underground organizations of their own, too. They call themselves Nazis or Ku Klux Klan, and many regard the blacks with open contempt. Listen to the voice of one white convict.
I see a guy with a natural, and he's talking about black is beautiful, and he's sitting there watching TV, and a white woman comes on, and I hear these remarks that he makes about her, what he would like to do with her, and I see the same old gutter nigger, so to say, from the street.
But blacks at San Quentin are angry also. One told us that for every black man who is murdered in the prison, 2 or 3 white convicts will be killed.
And they're going to have to understand that because all of us is dead, if it has to come to that.
Warden,
What are the basic reasons for the racial trouble and the killings? What are the fundamental causes of it?
Well, just at this point, we are reflecting more acutely, probably, many of the attitudes and prejudices of people on the street. Only in an institution of this kind, the people that we have contained herein are more likely to act out their prejudices rather than to talk them out. And they're more likely to, instead of saying somebody's a no-goodnik, they're likely to take up a piece of steel and try to do him in. And so we are, in fact, I guess, reflecting the polarization of the races, which appears to me to be taking place on the outside.
There are some other reasons for all the tension at San Quentin. Overcrowding, 2 men living in cells designed originally for just 1. Many were transferred to San Quentin after getting into racial trouble elsewhere. But some accuse the prison guards of stirring up the race trouble, of sneaking in narcotics and weapons.
The police officers that work here bring their prejudice in from the street. The same guy that brings in dope, that will bring in any other thing, was the same guy that will bring in knives and supply it with other sides and keep this stuff going.
If you can live together, you live together, but when you got bulls telling you, get this black when it gets down, or another bull telling the blacks, get this white when you get down, you can't stop nothing.
Talking about guards.
I'm talking about guards, yeah, bulls, yeah.
Prison officials point out, though, that most of the weapons confiscated from convicts are crude but effective devices, improvised within the prison. Yet Warden Lewis Nelson is concerned that some guards might be stirring up trouble with thoughtless remarks and racial slurs. He warned them it could boomerang.
I would hope that we don't have anybody on the staff who feel this way, because I pointed out to the third watch, there's this much danger for everybody involved. If this thing blossoms out into a full-blown racial war, if it does, and they're talk that it will. I've got some letters in here that said, you're not going to keep us from it, Warden, no matter how you go. So we're going to get this thing down, we're going to resolve it here. If it comes down to that, remember, you are either black or white, as the case may be. And you may be marked for extinction because this war might of necessity have to be escalated. Now, in my work, I've seen 10 members of the staff lay with their blood flowing out of them. I don't want to see any more. So, is a favor to your wife. You ought to be circumspect enough in your character so you won't be likely to be a target for this sort of uprising should one occur.
In an attempt to ease the racial tension, the warden has met with both black and white prisoners. One of the sessions was bitter. The inmates accusing the warden of depriving them of what used to be routine privileges after the violence had subsided. They felt they were double-crossed. But the warden's prudence seems to have been justified because the incidents continue. Even now, the warden's approach remains moderate. Yet there's no certainty that reason and mediation will work. But the warden feels it has to work.
Well, sooner or later, and hopefully sooner, the inmates will come to the realization that they've got to live together. We have had the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazis and the black militants sitting down together and talking. We have done better than they have in civilization on the outside, I believe. Failing that, we'll have a bloodbath.
The bloodbath, which Warden Nelson fears, is particularly disturbing because of something else he says. He believes his inmates are simply a microcosm of society on the outside. And he feels that what is happening now on the inside of his prison could well point towards even more violence and murder in the streets in the years to come. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, San Quentin.
Scientists at the Lunar Receiving Laboratory today began examining the second box of moon rock samples. Because of last week's accident that damaged the vacuum chamber, these specimens are being worked on in a chamber filled with dry nitrogen. Clinical examination of the first batch of mice injected with lunar dust also began today, but officials say a cursory examination showed no ill effects. Some 25 years ago, humorist H. Allen Smith created something of a national sensation when, as a reporter for United Press, he visited and wrote about a new...
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Green Lit Gang TV. Much love, much appreciation. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel today. It means a lot that you are here. Really quick, before we jump into it, let's do the intros. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. I really do appreciate it. If you do like the video, go back, check out some of the videos, check out some of the content, and let me know what you think. If you're a returning member, viewer, regular subscriber to this channel, then guys, you already know how much you mean to me. We hit 20K just a few days ago. That was a huge milestone for us, and I do mean us, truly. I am nothing without the continued support that I receive from my viewers, from my subscribers. So again, thank you. And if you remember from the last video, the new goal is 40,000 subscribers. I have no idea when we're going to hit it, but when we get there, we will get there. And lastly, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, hit the like button, hit the comment button, engage in some conversation, and smash the subscribe button. Let's go. All right, guys, I got a great story for you today. Did some digging and came across this story out of San Quentin State Prison from a little over a year ago. What caught my eye about this is, at first, the CDCR, the administration within the prison and within the CDCR, they weren't really saying a lot. And it wasn't until James Healy's family really started pushing, on top of articles coming out, investigative journalists, where we were kind of given the full story about what would happen, and actually not what would happen, what did happen inside this very small cell within San Quentin State Prison. San Quentin's known for their extremely small cells. Prison's hard enough as it is, mentally and physically, but especially mentally. So you can imagine what that will do to people. Even if you're good at doing time, being in a very, very confined space like that with another human being, if you don't get along with them and are basically on the same wavelength, things can go left very, very quickly. Okay, really quick, little background. San Quentin State Prison, formerly known, or now it's known as San Quentin Rehabilitation Center, kind of eye roll with that one. Formerly known as San Quentin State Prison, is a California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation State Prison for men located north of San Francisco in the unincorporated place of San Quentin in Marin County. Like I said in the intro, oldest prison in California, established in 1852 and officially opened in 1854. Now, really quick, I want to give a shout out to Convict's Perspective, great YouTube channel. I watched his video on this, picked up a little bit of information besides reading the article. So I just want to make sure I give a shout out to him. Go check out some of his videos. He does a really, really good job. He's got a lot more insight than I do, a lot more firsthand knowledge than I do. So please go check his channel out. What I got from him, San Quentin, it's viewed as kind of like an honors prison, meaning there's a lot of trade, a lot of job opportunities potentially if you can learn these trades, learn these skills that they are willing to teach you. It's close to the Bay Area. If you're live within the Bay Area, your family does, it's easy to get visitation or visitors into the visitation area. So people want to live there or people want to be housed there so their family, their friends can come visit. And to be honest, it's kind of viewed as a prison for, non-problem inmates. And I fully believe that, because when I just researched CDCR murders and topics for this channel, I don't come across San Quentin a lot. I really, really don't. But really important to remember, it is a non-designated yard. That's a mix of active gang members and non-active PC inmates, dropouts, SA offenders. You got them all in there. And this goes back to this California model that we have been banging the table on, especially all throughout 2025. It does not work. It is failing miserably. If you guys watch the show Vice, it's on sometimes like the streaming platforms, but it's also very prevalent on YouTube. Hector Bravo, another guy who has an amazing channel, did an interview. They dropped the video, I think, yesterday or the day before. And he basically is viewed as like a whistleblower. And they talked about the failing California prison reform system and how they are actively trying to cover up murders and crimes that take place within this prison system, and how people that are killing people over and over again, assaulting people. And when I say people, I don't just mean other inmates. I mean staff, nurses, doctors, whatever. It has basically become a free-for-all. And this case is another example of that. You've got Healy, James Healy, okay? He was viewed as a Norteño gang member, and his cellmate, Joshua Jones, who was an Norteño gang member, an basically Northern Collective is what they call it. And these kind of fall under that Nuestra Familia, that Norteño umbrella. We're going to read about that in just a second to kind of give you a better breakdown on that. They shouldn't have been put together. They should not have been housed together, is what the gist of this is. Especially when you find out that James Healy was only months away from being released for some very minor charges compared to his cellmate, Joshua Jones, who was serving like a double life sentence for murder. He'd been in San Quentin since the late 90s. It's just absolutely, it kind of makes you mad when you read it. So we're going to talk about the Northern Collective really quick to give you an idea so there's no confusion on that. The Northern Collective is a term used by the California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation to put the three Norteño organizations under one formal banner, also known as the Northern Structure, or to rivals, farmers and Northerners. The collective is headed by the Nuestra Familia, the NF, but within the collective you have the Nuestra Raza, their street regiments, and the Norteño street gangs. While these organizations fall under the Nuestra Familia, each has their own policies and beliefs, i.e. the beliefs of a Norteño may not be the same as a brother in the Nuestra Raza, and the beliefs of Nuestra Raza are not the same as a Familianos in the Nuestra Familia. This is where a lot of confusion sets in. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of give you that, so you know when I'm talking Northern Structure and all that you know what I'm talking about, okay? And Joshua Jones was an ex-Northern Structure member. He had moved around other SNY yards. SNY is sensitive needs yards, PC. But with all of this mixing going on within the California prison system, you're getting guys that should not be together. Josh was only serving double life. James Healy's a months away from getting out. And when I read you his crimes, you're really going to be like, oh my God, they put this guy in harm's way. So I'm going to read this, an article. He was killed in April of 2024, April 24th. This is an August 2nd article, basically about his family saying there's still no answers. Deanna Coleman, her brother, James Healy, died at San Quentin more than 3 months ago, but no one from the prison has told her anything officially about how he died, and she fears he was possibly beaten to death by his cellmate. Quote, "We want to understand what happened," Coleman told KTVU on Thursday. "We don't know exactly, as far as I understand. They're still doing the investigation into how he died, and you're going to understand why that's BS in just a minute." The family saga of trying to figure out how her 43-year-old brother, James Healy, died on April 25th is spelled out in a petition for writ of mandate in Marin County Superior Court, filed Wednesday by her niece's attorney, David Fiol of Brenton Fiol LLP in San Rafael. Fiol is trying to force the California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation to produce records of Healy's death. Quote, "This proceeding is made necessary by the disturbing refusal of the CDCR to provide with even a shred of information about the death of her father," and that's Marizela Healy. She wanted to know about why her dad died. "At the time of this filing, the CDCR has posted nothing about Mr. Healy's death on its website. It appears to be intent on suppressing information, not only about the circumstances of Mr. Healy's death, but even about the fact of his death in custody." And when they say that, that's that website, guys, I'm always reading from to you guys, the CDCR's main page. And it's really weird. I went right to that page thinking I'd be able to find information on his death. It was not on there. To date, there was no official cause of death, though Coleman did say that someone from the coroner's office in prison called the night of his death to tell her mother something to the effect that her brother had been killed. But both Fiol and KTVU reached out to the Marin County coroner, who said the cause of death is still pending. Quote, "Additional information from the CDCR's is not clear what the medical examiner is waiting for." It's absolutely crazy. Healy had asked correctional officers to reassign him to a different cellmate, Fiol wrote, because he was worried his bunkie might harm him, but the request was ignored. Coleman indicated that her brother had left his gang and she believed his cellmate had stayed. And so they basically put two different people from two different sides in the same cell, she said. Now, a little bit of conflicting information on that. When I read and watched other things, it said that Joshua Jones, Healy's attacker, had actually also left the Northern Structure gang. Just to kind of make that clear so you guys don't think I'm double talking here. The case is under review. Filing determination has therefore not been made in the case, a DA spokeswoman wrote in an email back to this website, back to this news station that was basically inquiring about that. Talks about how the lawyer was trying to get any documentation and video of how he died, but he had been refused across the board. I'm telling you guys, they like to cover some of this stuff up. They genuinely do. If you think they don't, you're wrong. I don't know how else to put it. You are wrong. Okay, fast forward just a few weeks. This is on August 27th, 2024. This first article was from August 2nd. This is a few weeks later. Person of interest identified. A man incarcerated at San Quentin has been identified in connection with the death of his cellmate. The Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation Rehabilitation said they are recommending charges to be filed against Joshua Jones, 50, following the homicide of James Healy, 43, who was killed on April 24th. On Tuesday, the Marin County District Attorney said no charges have been filed and the case is, quote, under review. Prison officials announced the development less than 2 weeks after KTVU published a story, the one we just read, saying Healy's family had not been given hardly any details about his death. According to prison officials, correctional officers were conducting security rounds around 9:40 p.m. when they found Healy, quote, unresponsive in his cell, suffering from a head injury. They did not elaborate on the injury or what used to cause the injury. Healy was pronounced dead at 10:27 p.m. Now check this out, guys. Okay, these are the charges that Healy was in on. He had been incarcerated at San Quentin since 2023 after being sentenced to nearly 3 years for buying or receiving a stolen vehicle, trailer, or construction equipment as a second strike offense, the CDCR said. Jones came to San Quentin in 1998. He was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole for second-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, both with firearm enhancements. Also, in 2016, while he was incarcerated, Jones was sentenced to an additional 9 years for assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury and or death. And in 2021, was also given another 3 years for assault with a deadly weapon. These are all in-prison offenses. Both were from Sacramento County. It's unclear why the two were housed together. Again, it talks about how Deanna Coleman said her brother had left his gang. He was also a northerner, a Northano. These are both guys are from Sacramento County. Crazy. So you have a guy in on stolen property, and I get it. Healy's a second striker. All right. That's why he ended up getting 3 years for basically just receiving stolen property. It's because he had priors. We talked about that, man. They hit you with some of those key words. You're going to end up doing a lot more time. But here you have a situation. We have a guy doing double life, and he's put in a cell with a guy who's literally counting the days down, probably trying to stay quiet about getting out. And he knows. James Healy could feel it. He asked to be, moved. Please, get me out of here. And the guy had priors of attacking, serious assault in 2016 and in 2021. Now, really quick, I'm going to end you with this. This is how I know, or how we should all know. And this goes back to that phone call that his mother received where it said he could have been killed and then not much else came of it. This is an article from 6 days after James Healy's death. Department records show a death occurred just before midnight, April 25th, on the prison's west block. Sources say James Healy, 43, just before midnight on April 25th, on the prison's west block. Sources say James Healy was killed by his new cellmate, a known gang member, and was beaten to death by blunt force using, quote, a lock and a sock. Then it goes on to talk about California Governor Newsom hosted a Norwegian delegation on a tour of the prison April 16th. 8 days later, as Governor Newsom is showing off this prison model, and I guarantee you they put all that BS, all these guys were smiling and everyone's acting like they're on the same page, and the Norwegian delegates are walking through, everyone's acting like they're on board. 8 days later, a guy's life is taken. It's an absolute joke what's going on in California. I encourage anybody to go read up on it, check it out, watch channels on it. It's nuts. And James Healy is a byproduct of what happens when this stuff begins to really take root. Anyway, there you guys have it. Much love, much appreciation. Till next time, peace.